Is Jungkook becoming the face of ARIRANG? And could this be the beginning of a Jungkook-centric ERA for BTS? Is this really just another comeback? Or are we witnessing the quiet birth of a new era? One where Jungkook stands at the emotional center of BTS like never before? Why was his voice the first to greet fans in the ARIRANG era? Why did his message arrive before any teaser photo, before any group statement, before any grand announcement? And why are fans across the world suddenly asking the same uneasy, curious, and thrilling question? Is BTS entering a Jungkook-centric era? On January 16th, 2026, the global music world shifted again when BTS confirmed their fifth studio album titled ARIRANG, scheduled for release on March 20th, 2026. After nearly 4 years of group silence since 2020, after military service, after endless speculation about whether their magic would feel the same, BTS returned not with fireworks, but with emotion. And at the front of that emotion stood Jungkook. Before posters, before trailers, before choreography spoilers, before concept photos, Jungkook spoke. Through Apple Music, through X, through a simple but piercing message that said, "Thank you for always being by our side. You're our biggest inspiration. Thank you." No heavy explanation.
No dramatic caption.
Just gratitude, delivered softly, but heard loudly by millions. Why Jungkook? Why first? Why now? The message came with a short video revealing the ARIRANG album cover, dominated by a striking red logo that felt both traditional and modern, both rooted and rebellious. The text appeared gradually, as if breathing, as if telling fans to slow down and feel. Within minutes, the post collected thousands of likes and retweets, exploding into global trends with hashtags like #BTS_ARIRANG and #Jungkook climbing charts across continents. This wasn't just a promo. It felt like a signal, and fans noticed. Almost instantly, ARMY communities lit up with speculation. Was Jungkook chosen randomly? Or was he chosen because ARIRANG is not just an album, it is an emotion, and Jungkook has become its face? ARIRANG, named after Korea's most iconic folk song, carries a meaning deeper than melody. ARIRANG is pain and hope, separation and reunion, tears and survival. It is the song of people who endure. It is Korea's emotional spine. And now, BTS has wrapped that legacy into their comeback after warlike years of absence, service, and waiting. If ARIRANG is emotion, then Jungkook, often called the Golden Magne, known for expressing vulnerability through voice, eyes, and silence, feels like a natural symbol. But natural does not mean neutral, because in BTS, balance has always mattered. So when Jungkook became the first emotional voice of ARIRANG, fans didn't just feel touched. Some felt curious. Some felt excited. Some felt uneasy. Is this album about all 7, or is it quietly orbiting one? This question grew louder when more details surfaced. ARIRANG will include 14 new songs. It will be released in multiple physical versions, including an exclusive vinyl edition. Pre-orders opened on January 16th at 11 o'clock Korea Standard Time through Weverse and international partners like Target. A massive world tour for 2026 to 2027 was announced, starting in Korea in April and stretching across more than 70 cities worldwide. Every detail screamed scale. Every move screamed ambition. But emotionally, the spotlight kept circling back to Jungkook. On Apple Music, fans who pre-added the album heard special voice messages from all 7 members. Jin, Suga, J-Hope, RM, Jimin, V, and Jungkook each spoke. But it was Jungkook's earlier standalone message that lingered longest in public memory. It arrived first. It traveled fastest. It hit hardest, in fans' faces. One question kept repeating in different languages, but with the same meaning. ARIRANG becoming Jungkook's era. Supporters of this idea argue that Jungkook is simply the emotional bridge between BTS and the world right now. He is the youngest, yet often the most emotionally open. His solo success in recent years has expanded his global recognition. His voice has become instantly recognizable even outside K-pop. If BTS wants to reintroduce themselves after years away, choosing Jungkook as the emotional messenger makes strategic and emotional sense, but others are uneasy. BTS built their legacy on balance. Each era highlighted different members, but rarely did one member dominate the emotional narrative before the music even arrived. If ARIRANG becomes too strongly associated with Jungkook alone, does that risk overshadowing the others? Or is this simply a misunderstanding fueled by early marketing timing? The debate is not angry, but it is intense, because it is rooted in love, not rivalry. Some fans say this is not a Jungkook-centric era, but a Jungkook-led introduction. Others argue that once an image forms in the public mind, it is difficult to undo. If the world begins to see ARIRANG as Jungkook's emotional era, will Jin's warmth, RM's depth, Suga's rawness, J-Hope's fire, Jimin's fragility, and V's mystery receive the same emotional framing? The irony is that Jungkook himself never asked to be the center. His message was not about himself. It was about ARMY. He did not say, "Look at me." He said, "Thank you." And maybe that is exactly why the spotlight followed him, because sometimes the quietest voice becomes the loudest presence. Media outlets like Forbes highlighted the emotional power of ARIRANG's concept and the symbolic weight of choosing a traditional Korean title for such a global comeback. They framed the album as a bridge between heritage and modern identity, between Korea and the world. And in many of those narratives, Jungkook's early message became the emotional doorway into that story. Lifestyle Asia focused on the social media explosion, noting how Jungkook's post from @rapper triggered instant viral response, proving that even a few words from him can move millions. Soompi emphasized the album structure, its 14 tracks, its physical versions, its vinyl edition, yet the emotional framing still traced back to that first moment. Jungkook speaking before anyone else. Stereogum tied the album to the massive world tour, describing ARIRANG as not just a comeback, but a global event, one that will carry BTS across continents again after years of separation. And in that narrative, Jungkook's message felt like the emotional starting gun of the race. So, what are we really witnessing? Is this the beginning of a Jungkook-centric era, where his voice becomes the emotional anchor of BTS? Or is this simply the opening chapter of a story that will soon widen to include all 7 equally? The truth may lie somewhere in between. BTS has always evolved. In early years, RM often carried the spokesperson role. In other eras, Jimin's performances defined the visual narrative. Sometimes Suga's lyrics drove the emotional weight. Sometimes Jin's warmth shaped the mood. Jungkook has always been present, but rarely positioned as the emotional gatekeeper of an era until now. What makes ARIRANG different is timing. This is not just a new album. This is a reunion after almost 4 years. This is the return of 7 men who went through military service, personal growth, global pressure, and long separation from their fans. Emotions are heavier. Expectations are higher. Every small move feels symbolic. So when Jungkook spoke first, fans didn't just hear his voice. They heard meaning. They heard reassurance. They heard continuity. They heard youth and resilience. They heard someone who grew up in front of them and now stands as a bridge between the past BTS and the future BTS. That is powerful. And power, even when unintended, creates focus. But does focus mean dominance? Not necessarily, because in the Apple Music messages, every member spoke. Each voice carried a different emotional color. Jin brought comfort. RM brought reflection. Suga brought honesty. J-Hope brought energy. Jimin brought sensitivity. V brought depth. Jungkook brought gratitude. ARIRANG, when fully heard, may reveal itself as a mosaic, not a mirror. Still, perception often forms before reality arrives. AS pre-orders opened and fans rushed to Weverse and global retailers. Conversations continued. Some fans celebrated the idea of a Jungkook-led emotional era, seeing it as his time to shine after years of supporting others. Some insisted that labeling any BTS era with one name goes against the group's philosophy. Others simply waited, choosing to trust BTS's history of balance. Meanwhile, the world tour announcement added fuel to speculation. Over 70 cities, multiple continents, a tour that will stretch from 2026 into 2027. Many wonder, whose presence will dominate the stage visuals? Whose voice will open the concerts? Will Jungkook again stand at the emotional entrance of this era, or will the narrative shift once performances begin? For now, one thing is certain, ARIRANG has not even been released yet, but it is already emotional. It is already controversial. It is already questioning identity, balance, and evolution. And Jungkook, whether he wanted it or not, stands at the center of that question. Did he becoming the face of ARIRANG? Yes, at least in its opening moment, did this truly a Jungkook-centric era? That answer remains hidden in music we have not yet heard, in stages not yet built, in emotions not yet released. But the fact that the world is even asking this question proves one thing: something has shifted. And when BTS shifts, the world always feels it first, before it understands it. The tension around this question grows not because fans doubt BTS, but because they care too deeply about what BTS represents. Balance is not just a musical concept for this group, it is emotional law. Every era has felt like a conversation between seven souls, not a monologue. So when ARIRANG opens with Jungkook's voice in the public space, the mind naturally asks, is this a new structure or just a new doorway? What makes this moment dangerous and beautiful at the same time is how quietly it happened. There was no announcement saying, this is Jungkook's era. There was no headline claiming dominance. There was only one soft message, one thank you, one young man speaking directly to millions who waited years to hear from all seven again. And yet that softness created the loudest echo. Fans began revisiting old patterns. They looked back at previous eras, searching for clues. In the past, BTS often rotated emotional centers. Sometimes the era felt like RM's mind speaking. Sometimes it felt like Jimin's body telling the story. Sometimes it felt like Suga bleeding onto paper. Sometimes it felt like Jeon holding everyone together when things felt too heavy. Jungkook was always there, but usually as the universal connector, not the emotional headline. That ARIRANG feels different because it is not just an album. It is a return. And returns always need a voice that says, we are here again. Jungkook happened to be that voice this time, but fans are not only emotional beings. They are analysts. They read timing, strategy, media language, algorithm behavior. They notice that Jungkook trends faster than any other member individually in many regions. They notice that global media often uses his name first when talking about BTS to attract general audiences. They notice that platforms like Apple Music and X amplify his content more aggressively due to engagement numbers. And that leads to a darker question. Is this emotional choice, or is it algorithmic strategy? If it is strategy, then ARIRANG might not be Jungkook-centric emotionally, but Jungkook-fronted visually. In a world ruled by clicks, faces matter. And Jungkook's face, voice, and name bring numbers. That is not jealousy. That is reality. But BTS has never been a group that lets numbers erase meaning. That is why ARIRANG as a title matters so much. They did not choose an English word. They did not choose something trendy. They chose a song that represents Korean endurance, separation, longing, and hope. That choice alone suggests that this era will not be shallowed. So if Jungkook is standing at the front of that choice, what does that say about him? Some fans believe it means the company sees him as the most emotionally universal member, someone whose feelings translate easily across cultures. He smiles like a boy, but carries pain like a man. He can sing sadness without explaining it. That makes him a natural bridge between ARIRANG's Korean roots and its global audience. Others believe this puts an unfair weight on his shoulders. To carry the emotional introduction of such a heavy era is not light work. It means every expression he shows will be analyzed. Every silence will be questioned. Every smile will be interpreted as symbolism. And Jungkook, despite his fame, has always been known as someone who feels deeply, sometimes quietly. So what happens if the world turns him into a symbol before he is ready to be one? That fear lives quietly in many fans' hearts. Because they remember how young he was when he entered BTS. They watched him grow under cameras. They saw him learn to protect his feelings in public. To now place him at the emotional gate of BTS's biggest return in years feels both powerful and risky, and yet, Jungkook did not look afraid in his message. He did not sound burdened. He sounded grateful. That may be the most dangerous thing of all, because gratitude makes people forget their own weight. As ARIRANG moves closer to release,